Good day, everyone. Today I will going to discuss the lesson 1, meaning, characteristic, and phases of authentic assessment. So first, let us read the learning objectives. So these lessons aim to present the different concepts of authentic assessment with an expectations that the students are able to discuss the meaning, characteristic, and phases of authentic assessment, and make an authentic assessment that considers its various principles designed for a specific lesson. So these lessons give you principles on how to conduct contextual assessment strategies that will cater the holistic development of your learner. This is made possible through authentic assessment. So when considering how to assess students' learning in a course, most instructors would agree that the ideal assessment would be one that not only assesses students' learning, it also teaches students to improve their skills and understanding of a course content. So one fundamental aspect of such assessment is that they are authentic. So an authentic assessment is one that requires applications of what students have learned to a new situations, and that demands judgment to determine what informations and skills are relevant and how they should be used it. So authentic assessment often focus on a messy, complex real-world situations and their accompanying constraints. So authentic assessment is defined by many educators around the globe. However, this module presents two of those comprehensive definitions. So first one is, according to John Mueller 2011, authentic assessment is a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful applications of essential knowledge and skills. So, according to John Mueller, authentic assessment simulates real-life situations that students are asked to participate in a real-world tasks and activities to demonstrate their knowledge of the course or subject matter. So it often asks students to analyze, synthesize, and apply what they have learned in a substantial manner. It focuses on the learning process, sound instructional practices, and high-level thinking skills and proficiencies needed for a successful in the real world, and therefore may offer students who have been exposed to them huge advantages over those who have not. So another one is, according to Grant Wiggins 1987, authentic assessment present engaging and worthy problem and or questions of importance in which students must use knowledge to fashion performances effectively and creatively. So the tasks are either replicas of or analogs to the kind of problem faced by adult citizens and consumers or professionals in the field. So according to Grant Wiggins, authentic assessment role would be achieved if the performance of the students is realistic, require judgment and innovations, and replicates or simulates the context of problem-solving case in which adults are tested in the workplace or in a personal life experiences scenarios. So for example, if I were a tele-instructor and I thought the skills required to perform well, so I would not assess my students' performance by giving them a multiple choice test. I would put them on the kitchen field and ask them to perform on how they could handle problem from a given scenarios that I've given to them. So based on the definitions, you can see that authentic assessment shifts from teacher-centered activities to student-centered. You as a teacher design activities and evaluate results which provide information needed for monitoring your learners' progress and evaluating your instructional strategies. So as we can see, from a traditional way, the teacher-centered activities, now authentic assessment encourage a learner-centered class where the teacher's major role is to help students accept responsibility for their learning and become self-evaluator. So now that you have understood what authentic assessment is, it is now the right time to realize its characteristics. So first one, authentic assessments start with clear and definite criteria of performance made known to the students. So an authentic assessment usually includes tasks for students to perform and a rubric by which their performance on the task will be evaluated to monitor the students' progress. So example for this activity is a role play. So the performance of the students in the role play would be rated based from the criteria of what the instructor needed to evaluate the students' progress. So next one is authentic assessment is criterion reference rather than norm references, and so identify strengths and weaknesses, not compare ranks in different level of performance. So norm reference is evaluate through the performance compared to others who took the test or with some other group of students. So norm references is a competitive way. It compares individual with each other and ranks them. While in criterion references, it compares students' performance with predefined performance standard. So in authentic assessment, it was based from criterion references that the instructor is interested of what the students can and cannot do, rather than how that certain students' performance compares with those other students. So next one. So authentic assessment requires learners to make their own answers to questions and requires them to use a range of our higher order thinking skills. So higher order thinking skills assessments provides questions or tasks that assess students' ability to analyze, evaluate, and create based on contextual issues. So basically, authentic assessment is a comprehensive assessment of the various tasks that are appropriate and can measure multiple constructs. So the instructor should design a task or a test items that require students to demonstrate their knowledge or skills. So example for this one is a reading and interpretation literary piece. So through this activity, it is the way to challenge the students to use critical thinking and problem solving skills. So next one is authentic assessment often emphasizes performance, so students are required to demonstrate their knowledge, skills, or competencies in appropriate situations. So authentic assessment is a performance-based assessment that measures students' ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit of a study. So typically, the task challenge students to use their higher order thinking skills to create a product or a complete process or situations of the given activity. So next one is authentic assessment encourages both teacher and learners to determine their rate of progress in cooperatively attaining desired learning outcomes. So in this characteristic, all teachers should assess students' progress frequently using a variety of evaluation method and maintain a record of result. So example for this one is studio portfolios. So in these studies portfolios, this is a meaningful collections of a student's performance and an in-depth evaluation of how they have put their knowledge to the work. So studies portfolios show clear patterns of a student's growth, and this helps the teachers to quantify the student's progress and performance. The next one, authentic assessment changes the role of the students as passive test takers into active and involved participants in assessment activities that emphasize what they are capable of doing. So in authentic assessment, it helps students to see themselves as active participants who are working on a task of relevance rather than passive recipients of obscure facts. So it helps teachers by encouraging them to reflect on the relevance of what they teach and provide results that are useful for improving instructions. So example for this one is presentations. So presentations are the most common and method of authentic assessment that students get to discuss their work and validate their ideas in the presence of a mixed audience made up of their classmates, teachers, and external stakeholders like parents or technocrats. So presentations build up students' confidence and communication skills. Also, they prompt the students to take extra care and invest more time and thought before bringing the ideas forward. Since the students get to use different tools like slides and sticky notes for the presentations, they also develop some level of proficiency with these tools. So, through these activities, it emphasizes the students' capability. So, based from those characteristics, it will help you to consider the necessary elements in crafting authentic assessment for your learners' performance and product outputs. Aside from considering the effective assessment strategies for learners' holistic development, authentic assessment also aims to improve the teaching-learning process. So in this section, you will now learn the importance of phases of authentic assessment with an aim to improve further instruction. So phase 1, identify learner outcome. So in phase 1, it identifying the most important knowledge and skills that students should be able to demonstrate in an activity as a result of their learning activities. So next, in phase 2, determine criteria and acceptable evidence of performance. So it is determining. So next, in phase 2, determine criteria and acceptable evidence of performance. So in phase 2, determining the criteria and the standard of outcome performance and the acceptable evidence that may be presented as proof of outcomes attainment of the students. So next one, phase 3, implement supporting experiences and instructional activities. So it is the implementation of the supporting activities that will facilitate the attainment of the desired students' learning outcomes. So next one is phase 4, implement assessment strategies. So it measures the extent at which the students is attaining the desired learning outcomes. So phase 5, evaluate results to determine attainment of outcome and ensure continuous development. So in phase 5, it is interpreting the assessment result and evaluating whether they indicate attainment of the desired outcomes and utilizing them for continuous improvement of their teaching and learning process. That would be all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Laura Joy and this is in continuation with Ms. Brigoli's report. Since you have now an idea of the difference between traditional assessment and authentic assessment, you can now follow these differences through these guidelines. First, the traditional assessment. It is commonly associated with predetermined choice measures of assessments such as multiple choice, fill in the blanks, true or false, matching type, and other tasks. Basically, learners typically recall or select answers. These are some principles and practices in which in-traditional assessment sprung from. First, a school's mission is to develop useful citizens. Second, to be a useful citizen, one must possess a certain body of knowledge and skills. So in traditional assessment, the body of knowledge is determined first. Third, the school is entrusted to teach this body of knowledge and skills. Fourth, to determine if the students have acquired this knowledge and skills, the school must test the student on this knowledge and skills. In traditional assessment, the curriculum drives assessment. The body of knowledge is determined first. That knowledge becomes the curriculum that is delivered. Subsequently, the assessments are developed and administered to determine if the acquisition of the curriculum occurred. Authentic assessment, on the other hand, is grounded in the following principles and practices. First, a school's mission is to develop useful citizens. Second, to be useful citizen, one has to be capable of performing useful tasks in the real world. Third, the school's duty is to help students develop proficiency in performing the tasks that they will be required to perform after graduation in the workplace. In this principle, the school aims for the student to perform the skills they acquired while studying that it can be useful in their chosen field. Fourth, the school must then require students to perform tasks that duplicate or imitate real-world situations. So in authentic assessment, it drives the curriculum. That is, teachers first determine the tasks that students will perform to demonstrate their mastery, and then a curriculum is developed that will enable students to perform those tasks well, which would include the acquisition of essential knowledge and skills.
Good day, everyone! To continue the discussion and to understand more the difference of the authentic assessment and traditional assessment, take a look at the table. We do have 5 attributes, which are the actions or options, setting, method, focused, and lastly, the outcome. Each attribute has different concept on the 2 assessment. First, we do have actions and options. In traditional assessment, we could see there that it means selecting a response. It means if you are a teacher in traditional assessment, you will ask question, or at the end of the lesson, you will ask a question and you randomly pick a student to answer your question. Let's say you pick 10 students to answer your question. That's how you assess if they learn something. While in authentic assessment, you will give an activity that will able them to perform. All of them will able to perform that activity. So it means all the students, you can assess if all the students really learn something on your lesson on that day. Second attribute is the setting. In traditional assessment, it is contrive or imagine, because the students were asked to demonstrate proficiency by answering questions that requires the student to choose from 4 possible answers. And one of the example of this is the multiple choice. While the authentic assessment, the students were asked to demonstrate proficiency by doing something. They perform, they demonstrate that very close in real life. Just like here in table, it says simulation or real life. Example, PE subject. The topic is Philippine folk dances. If in traditional assessment, the teacher would probably give them test paper and answer different multiple choice, while if the teacher is in the authentic or using the authentic assessment, rather than giving the student the test paper, the teacher would probably let the student pick a specific Philippine folk dance and perform. By then, the student came across to that lesson in real life. They experience the lesson, which is the folk dances. The third attribute is method. In traditional assessment, it is recalling and recognition. So it means that if you, the teacher, you will recall the topic that being discussed last meeting before you going to proceed to the next topic. For example, the topic you're going to discuss today is vegetables, and in the last meeting you discuss fruits. Before you proceed, you will ask or you will assess your student if they learned, if they remember something on the lesson, that which is the fruits. For example, Miss Santos, what color do you see when you see the apple? And the student will say, the apple have color red and green. And that's it. That is recalling. The student recall the topic, which is what color the apple usually have, which is the red and green. While in authentic assessment, instead of recalling, you give it an activity that requires them to construct. Example, in a short bond paper, draw the different fruits and color it by its appropriate color. And then the apple, the students can color them in red and green, like that. Enable them to construct. That's how you assess your students in authentic assessment. Number 4 is the focus. In traditional assessment, it is teacher-centered. It means that the focus is only for the teacher. The teacher will excessively talking or discuss the topic while the students will just going to sit down and listen to the teacher. While in authentic assessment, both teachers and students have equal focus. It allows the students to interact to the teacher, and the teacher will interact to the students. And how they're going to interact to each other? Asking questions. Like, by objectives of the lesson, you will ask your students like, do you have any questions? Do you have any clarifications? And that would be great communication between the two persona, the teachers and the teacher and the students. The last attribute is the outcome. In the traditional assessment, it says here indirect evidences. It means that the student learning progress is being gathered by the means of test paper, quizzes, and exams. Your result in those test papers, exam, and quizzes will reflect how far you're learning or how far your learning progress. While in authentic assessment, since it requires performance, constructions, demonstrating or doing something, you as a teacher, you could actually or you can directly see the progress or the learning progress of the students. From the table and from all the discussions, you could actually say that there is no necessities in choosing traditional assessment and authentic assessment because it still depends on the instructor. Teachers' mastery in lesson and knowledge is still encouraged because it serves as the groundwork to anchor activities that gives the students learning progress. And that would be the end of lesson 2, and thank you very much.
Now that you have understood the principles of authentic assessment and how to design it for a specific learning outcome, you will now learn how to evaluate authentic assessment activities using different assessment tools. And there are 3 modes of authentic assessment as basis for evaluation. So, authentic assessment, when we say authentic assessment, it is the idea of using creative learning experiences to test students' skills and knowledge in a realistic situation. So, this is also measures the students' success in a way that is relevant to the skills required of them once they finish your course or degree program.
So the three modes of authentic assessments are observations. These are used to monitor learners' progress, and it includes dates and information that you collect from daily work with your learners or students. So the second one is the performance samples. So performance samples are tangible results that demonstrates learners' achievements. And the last one is the actual performance, or it is also called as the test and measures of the learners at a specific place and time on a certain learning outcome. So after learning the three modes of authentic assessment, you will now be oriented on the different principles and assessment tools that you can utilize for each mode. So the first mode is the observation-based assessment tool. So observation is a very powerful assessment tool that offers teachers insight to the processes our learners employ when engaging in learning experiences. So as an educator, we have to ensure that all the observation assessment is systematic and objective. So there is a suggested guidelines from Heart of 2004 enable for us to come up with this systematic and objective authentic assessment. So first is we need to observe not only one but all students. Second, observations must be frequent and as regular as possible. So third one is the observations must be recorded in writing. Fourth one is observations should cover both routine and exceptional occurrences. The fifth one is reliability of observations. Observation records is improved if multiple observations are combined. So here is a sample scenario for the observation-based assessment tool. So the teacher will conduct an observation to the students. He or she will observe the performance and the attitude of the student during and after the class. So after the observation, the teacher can be able to identify the weaknesses and the strengths of the students. So the role of the teacher there is to assess the students to improve themselves into a better one.
Hello, good day everyone. So this time, you will learn the types of observation-based assessment tool that you can use for observational assessment activities. Developmental checklist. It is an observational tool which requires you to describe the traits of learning being assessed by your learners. And if these tools will be regularly used, it will give you a moving picture. As a teacher, it will give you a moving picture of your learners' progress towards the desired competencies. And developmental checklist, sa developmental checklist na ay duha ka types. Individual development checklist and group development record sheet. Under sa individual development checklist, may dalawang subtype to. The first one is the oral communication and the second one is the written communication. Each subtype may kanya-kanyang stages, and the teacher will be the one to indicate the date kung kailan na-achieve ng kanilang student yung ganitong stage. Stage 1 po sa oral communication, students speaks with hesitation. Stage 2, student speaks and complete sentences. Stage 3, student speaks extemporaneously. Stage 4, volunteers to participate in speaking activities. So, dito na nagbo-volunteer na yung mga students at saka naglalabas na ng kanilang mga point of views and ideas regarding sa discussed topic. And for the oral communication po naman, sa stage 1, students can write but nahihirapan pa sila, writes with difficulty. Stage 2, writes with some improvement. Dito makikita mo yung transition ng write-ups ng student mo from their previous write-ups. Stage 3, writes with correct grammar and syntax. Stage 4, submits essays and reports. So, dito sa stage na to, nakakaya na ng mga students mo na mag-submit ng essays regarding sa, of course, sa given topic and ng kanilang mga reports. And the second type of developmental checklist is the group development record sheet. Though by group mo silang i-observe, pero individual ng teacher, individual silang, individual ilalagay ng teacher yung date kung kailan nila na-achieve yung particular stage. And we have here, prepares lesson plan before teaching, writes outcomes-based objectives, motivates class and sustains interest. The last one, participate in class activities. So, by group silang i-observe. Pero, under sa mga nabanggit na stages na yon, doon po ilalagay yung mga date, as we can see sa sample. Doon po ilalagay yung mga date kung kailan na-achieve ng students yung ganitong klase na stage po. So, the other observational tool is the interview sheet. It is an observational tool which is also called the conference recording form. It consists of a list of questions that you intend to ask and space for recording your learners' answers. So, ako'y example. Sa example po, pinapakita po dito, you have to, the teacher will have to conduct a one-on-one interview sa student or sa learners. Not like sa mga nauna na mga observational tool nga the teacher will have to indicate lang sa date kung kailan nila ito na-achieve itong mga particular stages. Pero dito, you have to talk with the students and you have to ask some questions. Just like, why did you select this topic? What the sources of your materials? What is your theoretical basis of your research topic? How do you plan to gather data from your research? Mga sample questions lang po ito. Tsaka ito pong, interview sheet. Sample lang din po ito. I'm just following kung saan nakabutang sa module. I don't know po if module siya ang format. Pero sa pagkakaalam ko, example na din po ito. Yung interview sheet po nakabase din po sa kung ano po yung level siguro ng tinuturuan. At of course, kung ano din po yung topic discussed. Thank you!
Good day everyone! So, after you learn the observation-based assessment tools, now let's move on and tackle about the performance samples assessment tools. So, performance sample assessment tools is tangible results that demonstrate student achievement. Meaning to say, the findings are concrete in illustrating students' achievement or accomplishment. In this mode, the teacher will assess the student's performance or the product. So, examples of performance assessments includes like mag-compose og sentences open-ended response, mag-develop og analysis sa essay, also mag-conduct og laboratory investigation, mag-complete og original research, and mag-comply og portfolio sa students' work. So in this lesson, let's focus on portfolio. So the portfolio is the product arranged by the learners through performance samples. So at the end sa semester or sa year, the teacher will require and let students pass a portfolio. So in this way, ma-determine sa teacher if the student's performance is na-develop ba or wala. So like what I said earlier, the performance samples are arranged by the learners to form a portfolio. So it can be a simple folder of these pieces of evidence, a fancy scrapbook of learners' accomplishment, or even a high-tech laser disc containing stored descriptions and pictures of the learner's activity. So there are three purposes of portfolio. First, the teacher can assess the growth and development of the students at various levels. So through checking the output of students' individual portfolio, ma-assess or ma-evaluate sa teacher ang growth o development sa students. Also, ma-compare ang level of growth sa students from where they were or what level they were at an earlier time prior to the completion of portfolio with where they were now after the completion of portfolio. So second, parents are informed of the progress of their children in school. So it's best to include the parents and children's progress, right? So the portfolio could be a contact information in the progress report. So just in case mag-ask ang parents or mag-comment about sa ilang child's progress, so portfolio would be helpful. So the more parents involved in their children education, the better the students' inter-class motivations, behavior, and grades. And lastly, instructional supervisor are able to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of the academic program. So, not just the teachers and parents will be informed, also the instructional supervisors, and diri ma-determine ang strengths and weaknesses sa academic program, which will result that there were changes or improvement. So the following are the performance samples included for a portfolio. So these are the essays, video tapes, audio tapes, conference note, pictures, graphs or charts, artwork, group reports, compact disc, field reports, journals, and quizzes. So let's talk about essays. So essay or a piece of writing that is written to convince someone or of something or to simply inform the reader about a particular topic. So the essay includes several important components to make it flow in a logical way. So in this way, students increase their understanding and helps the process of learning. So diri sad ma-determine sa teacher kung kabalo na ba ang student sa pagsulat sa proper structure sa essay, and of course, sa proper grammar. Another one is videotapes. So, videotapes is efficient and memorable way to deliver knowledge of the students. So, it can help students actively engage with subject matter and learn from one another. Next is audio tapes. So, it includes cassettes, which in this way, students can focus on the creativity and thinking instead of stressing over spelling errors. So another example of performance task is conference note. So conference note are those notes that are recorded or taken down by the students during classes. So in this way, the teacher can assess if the students grasp the gist of the lesson, highlighted the key issues that are being discussed, and taken down the activities that need to be taken. Next is picture. So examples of pictures are magazines or portraits. So it allows students to show their creativity through putting pictures in portfolio. Next is graph or chart. So graph can communicate important quantitative information in a visual format to students. So in this way, teacher can assess whether students can already know how to interpret graph or chart. Artwork. So learning through and about the arts enriches the experience of studying while at school, as well as preparing students for life after school. So through this, teachers can be able to determine how students express themselves, their creativity, and their individual identity. Next is group reports. So, group reporting is a form of cooperative learning. So here, students are responsible for their own learning and for helping others to learn. Students also enhance their social skills, and teacher can assess how students work with group. So compact disc that has digital data, which will help the teacher evaluate the development of students' hand-eye coordination, attention, perception skills of the children, and also provide the support of all developmental areas and the independent learning. Field report. So, field report is a documentation of observations and analysis of particular phenomena behaviors, and process of students. Next is journals. So, journaling helps students to be less restrained when expressing themselves. So, it also gives students time to organize their thoughts and prepare responses, which can give them extra confidence they need to participate in the classroom discussion. In this way, teachers will learn more about their students. And lastly is quiz or quizzes. So, quiz or quizzes encourage pupils' self-awareness of progress and self-assessment. So, by taking quizzes, students get instant feedback on their responses, and this can help them identify areas they need to develop themselves and highlighted progress for them to be proud of. Also, quizzes can help teachers assess the effectiveness of their instruction as well as students' understanding of the concepts taught. And that's all for my report. Thank you for listening and watching.
So in continuation of the Lesson 3 topic, I will be discussing about the performance assessment tools. So now, let us know first what is performance assessment tools. So with the implementation of the outcome-based education or OBE across the country, greater emphasis is given in assessing student outcomes through real life, which requires learners to work and carry on tasks to perform and do something. So in other words, Kinesis performance assessment tools is an approach to educational assessment through which gina-measure niya or ma-measure niya diriya if how well students apply their knowledge, their skills, and also their abilities to authentic problems. So, kibali, ang key feature lang aning performance assessment tools is that gina-require niya ang student nga kanang to produce something ba, such as report ba karon, experiment, or performance ba, basta anything nga kanang ma-apply nila ang ilang knowledge, ang ilang skills, and also their abilities, in which kanang ginascorean pud siya based on the specific criteria. So, kaning performance assessment tools is very useful and helpful sa ato ang mga teachers or sa ato ang mga instructor, and also sa ato apuhon ng mga future educator, kay it's because ginapadali lang niya para sa mga teachers to create, support, and assess performance tasks para sa mga students, wherein through ani ma-evaluate ni teacher kung si student ba na ay natun-an or nasabtan, and to see if they are able to apply their knowledge. Okay, so assessment in which learners carry out activities or produce product in demonstrating their metacognitive knowledge, understanding, and skills is what we call, or at mo na siya ato ang ginatawag na performance-based assessment. So in simplest term lang, no, this type of learning is an ongoing process that allows student-centered learning and progress monitoring at the same time, wherein both teachers and students collaborate and adjust their learning kung kinahanglan. So, kibali ikaw nga teacher, imuhang ipa-demonstrate kung unsay natun-an sa imuhang student, which is kanang applicable lang pod sa real-world situation. And then of course, need sad ang imuhang feedback regarding sa ilang performance ag assessment in order nga kanang to fully receive the full effect of performance-based learning and assessment. So, ang main objective lang jud ani performance task of the learners, no, is to capture all the learning targets which shall be aligned to the teaching and learning objectives. Of course, kailangan jud siya nga kanang sakto sa imuhang objectives, no, sa imuhang activities and assessment. So, the focus of performance-based assessment is, ang focus lang niya is ang final output that must be developed or completed. So, according to Module 2009, na siya gi-state dito ang mga types of performance-based assessment task nga pwede nimong i-utilize or pwede nimong gamiton sa imuhang klase. So, ang first dito is ang solving a problem. Ang second is completing an inquiry. Third is demonstrating a position. Fourth is demonstration of task. Fifth is developing exhibits. Ang ika-6 is presentation task. And the last one is the capstone performance test. Okay, so let's now talk first about the first type of performance-based assessment task, which is the solving a problem. So, complex authentic problems or issues to be solved by learners enhances their independent thinking to be learners for life and help them meet the challenges of the 21st century. So of course, 'di ba, as we grow and develop, there are so many challenges or struggles or what we call problems nga maagian nato sa ato ang journey. And nag-level up na siya as we grow in age. So it is important nga sa classroom pud no tudluan nato ang ato ang mga estudyante to solve basic problems. So example ana nga mga activities or tasks nga pwede nimong ipabuhat is that applying mathematical concepts or solving real-world problems. And of course, ikaw nga teacher, you are there, you are tasked to guide syempre ang imong mga student to assess and correct them in order nga kanang mag-enhance pud sila ba. So, kani siyang solving a problem as mentioned kaganina, it enhances the students' independent thinking wherein makahibalo na sila mo balance sa tanan and of course to decide and solve problem on their own. So next is completing an inquiry. So this type of task it asks learners to collect and present data in order to develop understanding on the topic. So ang example nga mga activities or tasks nga pwede nimong ipabuhat sa ilaha include kanang mga research-based activities and investigatory projects. So through this, may balaan nimo or ma-assess nimo kung naabot jud sila natunan or nasabtan to that specific topic nga gihatag nimo sa ilaha based sa kanang data nga ilahang na-collect. Okay, so next is the determining a position. So this requires learners to make decisions by clarifying positions. So example of this includes debate and case analysis. So in other words, kining determining a position is a performance-based assessment task which is helpful for students to determine problem and make decisions in which sila mismo sa ilang kaugalingon makahibalo sila kung naaba sila sa tama or naaba sila sa mali, kay through which sila man mismo ang mo-clarify sa ilahang position. So next is the demonstration task. So very common po ni siya nga task no kay every session or every class na man jud ni siya ginapabuhat man jud ni siya sa ato ang mga students. So this task shows how learners use knowledge and skills to complete well-defined complex tasks. So it enhances accuracy of the learners as well as careful reasoning concerning the rationality of the process. So example of this includes cooking demonstration and using microscope. So sa ato ang mga TLE teachers pohon, using this type of performance-based assessment task no, pwede nga ipa-demo nato sa ato ang mga students on how to use the different kitchen tools or how to cook a certain dish in which using their own technique or knowledge, ma-complete nila ilahang task accurately and of course, ma-assess pud nato sila as a teacher kung naabot jud sila natun-an based sa ilahang output nga nabuhat. So, the next one is developing exhibits. So, developing exhibits enhances creativity and knowledge of the subject as learners present visual displays of something accompanied by explanation of its essence. So, classroom applications include exhibit of best works and painting. So, pwede po nung emerge ng demonstration task o developing exhibits kay after nila mabuhat or ma-demonstrate ang usa ka task, ipa-display nimo sa ilaha and of course i-introduce nila sa imuha ang ilang output and then explain some details of which. So, unsaon nimo sila pag-assess? So, of course, mag-ask kag question to fully test their knowledge,
dili lang kay makita nimo ang ilahang creativity, apil na pod ang ilahang understanding ug knowledge sa ilahang output or sa ilahang or sa certain task nga ilahang gibuhat. From the given performance-based activities I've mentioned kaganina or I've discussed kaganina, learners were able to enhance their holistic growth, their knowledge, their skills, and also their abilities. So once again, that's all for the performance assessment tool, and that's all for my part also. So thank you for listening, and I hope you've learned from it. Bye.
Hi everyone, this is the continuation of Ms. Escalona's report, Lesson 3, Authentic Assessment Tools. So the topic that I'm about to discuss is Performance Assessment Tools. So the first 5 assessment tools were explained by Ms. Escalona earlier, so I'm about to continue it. The sixth one is Presentation Task. Learners perform in front of audience. Their performing skills were improved. Example of this include theatrical plays and storytelling presentation. So ang point aning presentation task is para ma-enhance or ma-improve ang skills sa estudyante, especially sa communication skills, verbal skills, and not just practice their oral communication skills, but to also boost their confidence para dili sila maulaw, atubangan bisag daghang tao, makastorya sila tarong, and ang ways para ilang mahasa ni nga skills is through theatrical plays, storytelling, and other presentation activities nga naay audience. So the last one is capstone performance. So at this part, mo siya ang last stage sa pag-eskwela, which is diri nimo i-showcase tanan ang imong nahibal-an. For example, sa mga education students, practice teaching. Bali murag ilang i-apply kung unsa to ilang nahibal-an sa ilahang pag-eskwela gikan sa sugod hangtod sa last. Then bali murag ma-experience nila kung unsa ang ginabuhat gyud as teachers. So that is the capstone performance. So let's move to the another part, which is the 2 domains. The first is the Dave's psychomotor domain, and the second one will be explained by the next reporter. So the first domain has 5 levels, and these are the 5 levels. So the first level of Dave's psychomotor domain is imitate. So imitate is the ability to observe and pattern your behavior after someone else. So at this level, learners simply copy someone else or replicate someone's actions following an observation. So the second level is manipulate. So manipulate, the ability to perform certain action by memory or following instruction. So at this level, a student will learn or makabuhat siya sa usa ka activity by following instruction, whatever it is, verbal or written instruction. The third one is precision. The ability to perform certain actions with some level of expertise and without help or interventional from others. So at this point or at this level is ang estudyante is mahimo siya independent, which is kaya niya maglihok with himself only, without the help of others. So that was the 3 levels of Dave's psychomotor domain. So that's it, guys. We have still 2 levels left that would be explained by Ronel and the rest of the topic. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, in continuation of the Dave's psychomotor domain, that parts of the performance assessment tools, the fourth domain is that what we call the articulation. So, when we say articulation, it is the ability to adapt and integrate multiple actions to develop methods to meet varying and novel requirements. So, at this level, a learner's skills that are so well developed that you can modify movement to fit special requirements or meet a problem situation. So in this domain, in this Dave's psychomotor domain, we can say that several skills can be performed together in harmonious way. So in which ang learners o dapat ang kini nga domain that naga-emphasize that the learners are very flexible, just like for example kanang makaya niya ang og combine or makaya niya sa isa ka task og combine ang mga skills such just like for example ang learning outcomes nimo kay the learner will be able to combine a series of skills to produce a video that includes music, drama, color, or sound. So from that scenario, sa isa ka situation, makaya sa isa ka learner na makombine ang isa ka skills in kanang single of action. So ang mga example ana niyang mga clues or mga keywords nga that connects the articulation, just like for example adapt, construct, combine, mag-create, customize, modify, formulate, alter, and originate. So that keywords supports the articulation. And the fifth, the last articulation or the last domain that a part of the Dave Psychomotor's domain is the naturalization. So from the word itself, naturalization, so the learners can adapt the behavior naturally. So this is the ability to perform actions in an automatic, intuitive, or unconscious way. At this level, the learner's performance is automatic with little physical or mental exertion. So the learner's performance has become second nature or natural without needing to think much of it. So as what I've said earlier, so naturalization, so from this domain, ang isa ka learner maka-adapt or ma-perform na niya ang isa ka situation without thinking. So it is high level of performance achieved with actions becoming second nature. Kay kumbaga, mga situation nga no need na niya tagaan og so much time para mag-think and mismo ang self nang mag-init nga mag-act sa ka situation. Just like for example, kung tahay ang imuhang subject is ICT, 'di ba? Usually when handling this subject or course, so we are dealing with the computers. So kung tahay ang imong learning outcomes kay operate a computer quickly and accurately, 'di ba? So if you're kanang operating a computer, so of course init na sa imuhang mga kamot o sa imuhang physical body na mo act according sa pag-response nga unsa ang ihatag sa screen. So mao na siya. So naturalization, the ability to perform actions like kanang automatic, kanang innate na sa imong self. So that is the last domain of Dave's psychomotor. So after we discuss the Dave psychomotor domain, we have also the Harrow psychomotor domain, in which in this topic it is highly emphasized the tool that is being used, the checklist. So actually guys, there are many kinds of observation tools na pwede ma-apply sa Harrow psychomotor domain, but it is highly emphasized diri ang checklist. Actually, there are rating scales, anecdotal records, o critical incident technique. But then, one of the most frequently used and a very basic instrument nga ginagamit is ang checklist para pag-assess sa performance in a specific topic. So, it is a performance checklist that consists of a list of behaviors that make up a certain type of performance. Just like, for example, using microscope, preparing letter, solving mathematical problems, and it is used also to determine whether or not an individual behaves in a certain way when asked to complete a particular activity. And you will check the particular behavior to signify its attainment. So, di ba, kung mapansin nimo kung i-relate na to siya sa COVID cases, usually when we're going to the restaurant, di ba ma-try na to nga kanang before ta makasulod kay i-assess na to if kanang natay papel nga compose siya og checklist na in which nakay ipang check nimo kung kato ba nga mga behavioral is kanang makarelate ba ka ato, just like for example kung tayo kalintura ba ka, so it's either absence man siya, wala man siya, so mag-no ka kung nakay mga behavioral nga naka-connect ato nga naa sa papel, so of course imo to siyang i-check, so something nga nana siya. Magamit ang kining checklist sa diverse siya nga application, like magamit siya bisan asa. And as what I've sa example nga naa, di ba, na address performance checklist in solving mathematical problems. So just like for example sa naa ni nga topic, performance checklist daw in solving mathematical problem. There are many topics nga kanang unsa ba nga mga behavioral actions ang pwede magamit ani, just like for example ang naa diri kay identify the given information, identifies what is being asked, uses variable to replace the unknown, formulate equations, so perform algebraic expressions. So from this behavioral, so magdepende ni siya sa specific topic kung kini ba nga mga behavior is ma-apply ba siya. Just like for example, di ba kato elementary pa ta, kung tayo, si Ana gitagaan og 9 ka apples og 10 ka orange. So pila ang nadawat ni Ana? So mga yun ana nga mga typical questions, di ba? So kaya ang last question man kay pila ang nadawat ni Ana. So of course kung mag-base sa behavior nga nasa checklist is ma-apply ang identify what is being asked. So mga yun ana siya, mga behavioral actions nga makarelate siya in a given situation nga unsa ang pwede ma-apply ato, di ba? So mao na siya guys. Mao to siya. Dave, ang sa ako nga content is the continuation of the Dave's psychomotor domain and this Harrow psychomotor domain. So that's it guys. Thank you.